So the complexity of how I set up the system gives a lot of viewers the impression that this thing is hard to get set up and that it's more trouble than it's worth. But I promise you, it's actually not that difficult at all. So the first thing you're gonna want to do is turn on the AV receiver. So this guy back here, okay, you're gonna hit the power button to the left side of the one on the bottom. Turns on this one on the bottom, and the one on the top turns on immediately after. Okay, that controls everything. Now all you need to do is turn on the two amplifiers. You have one amplifier right here. It's next to the bookshelf. One amplifier right here under my bed. And now both of the amplifiers are on. Okay, the one under my bed powers 412s. One under the, next to the bookshelf powers 112. If you just want to listen to music casually, just use one amplifier, the 112. And you don't got to worry about too much. Now everything's on, and it's about how do you play music. Well, I have an input selector here. It also has a volume knob on it. Just ignore the volume knob. It has an input selector. So you can select input 1, which is furthest to the front, or input 4, which is facing you. Input 4 does nothing. Input 3 is the turntable. Input 2 is the CDJ. Input 1 is Alexa. Now, depending on how I want to play music, I can either say Alexa pair, and it will looking for my phone, and it'll Bluetooth connect to my phone, and you can pair it to your phone. Or you can say, Alexa, play Lights by Ellie Goulding.
All right. Lights by Ellie Goulding from Spotify.
And it'll play, just like that. Now, your volume control is going to be here. I typically max out my volume around 15. Now, depending on what music you're playing, you can turn it up more. If I'm playing music through my phone and it's rebased, I can cut it to like 12, 11. If I'm playing a song like this, for instance, that doesn't really have too much of a bass line, I can set it to like 10, sometimes even 8. But for safety reasons, like if I'm not trying to demo something, I always just max it out at negative 15 dB. So this is as loud as I'll go. Now, that's all I do. And that's the max volume theoretically. I could also use a EQ to set it so that the max volume is going to be set so that I can turn it up to the very max, nothing will happen. I didn't bother doing that. That adds an extra step. And this is my system, not somebody else's own. So I decided I would deal with that extra step because it would only cost me money to integrate something that would only be helpful to someone that isn't me. And it's not like I'm giving the system to somebody. This is my room. So yeah. Funny enough, this is probably the video I'd be sending to somebody if they ever asked how it worked. But yeah. You'll hear the amplifier start to ramp up when they start to produce some power. You see this guy's fan is on. It gets pretty loud, but you're not going to hear a fan over some music anyway. But anyway, you got the volume here. This volume knob, don't touch it. I don't touch it. I have it set so it lines up right here with where this notch starts for this new level, and that's where I leave the volume, because the volume for this is controlled by the volume here. This volume is just set so that this is the absolute max that this can go to. But what I will tell you is that if you cut this volume too loud, I used very thin wiring when I set up these speakers, and as a result, when too much power begins to go through them, the impedance will change on the speakers, and the amplifier will acknowledge that the impedance changed, and it will tell you to check the wires. It'll say check SP wires. Ignore it. Turn the volume down and turn it back on, and it'll be fine. Matter of fact, I'll demonstrate that right now. Okay, see? I just shut the speakers off. I'm sorry if you had to hear that distortion. It was horrible. But now, look what happens when I turn the receiver back on. Oh, it didn't say it. It usually says check SP wires. But anyway. So that's typically what happens. Just cut it back on. Also, when you turn up the bass really loud, it only really works with rebased music because that's when I'm like demoing it or showing it to somebody. For casual listening, this doesn't typically happen. But this speaker over here, because of the way I mounted it, it always moves. So if it moves, I always just put it back. So if you've ever seen any videos that the speaker's not where it ended up, that's what's happening. When the music gets really loud, it starts to shake my roof. You can hear it in some clips where the roof will go like drrr, drrr, it'll shake the roof. And it also causes that speaker to move because the speaker's mounted to the roof and not like the rest of these. So yeah, that's the system, everybody. That's how the system works. It's a very simple system. Also, fun fact, I have a remote. This remote does not turn on the AV receiver, but it does control the volume, so I can do this. And I can mute it, just like that. But something else I will tell you, I plan on adding something to the system. It's going to be a universal IR emitter that's going to allow me to connect it to Alex A. That's going to allow me to say, Alex A, turn on my sound system. And because it's a universal IR emitter, what it'll be able to do is turn on the AV receiver, set it to a certain volume, and it can enable the AV receiver. But I could also set it up as an Alexa, as an Alex A routine, so that if I get smart plugs or smart switches, whatever they're called, I can hook it up to my amplifiers and I can say, Alex A, turn on my speaker system, and it will enable the power for both of the amplifiers, and it'll turn that on, and it will allow everything to be done just by a voice command. Something else I can do is use the IR emitter to turn on the TV and say something like, Alex A, let's watch a movie. So it'll turn on the amplifiers, both of them. It'll turn on the AV receiver. And because I turn on the TV, it'll automatically switch the AV receiver to the digital input, which is what I use for the TV. Otherwise, you have to press the input button on the front of the receiver to switch it to digital instead of analog, because analog is what the music is on. Additionally, what I could do is, let's say I always like the AC on, because it's an IR emitter, I can do that too. I could say, Alex A, I'm trying to watch a movie, and you know what it's going to do? Turn on amplifier 1, turn on amplifier 2. It's going to turn on the AV receiver. It's going to turn on the TV, which will switch it to digital. I could set it so it always puts it to a certain volume on the AV receiver. Let's say I like my movies at negative 30 dB. I could tell it to put the volume to negative 30. I could also tell it to turn on my air conditioning and put it at 22 degrees Celsius. And would you look at that? I set up an entire room just by using voice commands. And matter of fact, if I wanted lights, I could do the same thing. Whether I decide to get smart light bulbs or whether I decide to get smart LED lights, which I already have around my room. I have to either fix them or replace them. I think I'm going to do the replacement because I already have some that I can replace them with. But I'm going to change the module to be a Wi-Fi module so that Alex A can control them. And then in one voice command, I'll be able to say that I want everything in this room to turn on. And I think that right there is absolutely awesome. That's the future of this room, and that's something that I could do right now for approximately like $70. I just haven't bothered doing it yet because it's something I don't really need to do. I don't spend money just because I have it. I kind of spend money based on necessity first, and occasionally I'll see something cool. But yeah, that's the move. Every idea doesn't necessarily always need to be spent on, but for everyone who asked how I set up the sound system and thinks that it's complicated to get running, it's a 3-step process. Turn on the AV receiver and then turn on the amplifiers, and Bob is your dad's brother. You can ask Alex A to play whatever you want. It's really dope. Come on, man. Just saying.